My name is Anne Hathaway, and I'm 29 years old. My husband Sean and I have been married for a year now. In the beginning, everything felt like a dream, like I was the luckiest woman alive. Sean and I had met in high school, but it wasn't until our reunion that we reconnected. He confessed he had always loved me, and soon after, we started dating and then got married. I couldn't believe how happy I was. I thought that as long as I had Sean by my side, everything would be perfect. I was thrilled about our life together. But things didn't go as I had imagined. After we tied the knot, we moved in with Sean's parents. I didn't think much of it at first. I thought it would be temporary, that we'd get our own place soon. However, I had no idea what I was walking into. Sean's father, my father-in-law, was a man from a completely different time. He held old-fashioned, misogynistic views that often made me uncomfortable. Little things, like telling me I wasn't good at making tea or mocking the way I spoke, seemed harmless at first, but they soon became a daily reminder of how out of place I felt in this house. It felt like every day was a struggle to be accepted, to prove that I belonged. The more time I spent with them, the more I realized how much my father-in-law disliked me. He didn't like the fact that I was an immigrant, and he constantly made snide remarks about me speaking English. At first I kept quiet. I thought things would improve, but no matter what I did, it seemed like I was always under his scrutiny. He made no effort to get to know me, to understand where I was coming from. And then there were the moments when he would belittle my work. I loved being an interpreter, but he didn't seem to think much of it. Every time he would insult my job, I'd try to hold back my anger. What did he have against me? Why did he constantly belittle me just because I was from a different country? I remember one evening when I finally snapped. He had been criticizing my work again, calling it unnecessary and ridiculous. I couldn't take it anymore. I looked at him and said, "I've lived in Japan. I love this culture. You don't have the right to say these things to me." I tried to stand up for myself, but every word felt like it fell on deaf ears. He wasn't listening. He wasn't trying to understand. I could feel the resentment building up inside me. How long could I live like this? But I didn't want to make waves. I didn't want to upset Sean. He was so busy with work, and I didn't want to add any more stress to his already full plate. I kept telling myself things would get better, that maybe one day his attitude would change. But as the days passed, my hope started to fade. Part 2. A life full of criticism and isolation. Every day it felt like my father-in-law was finding new ways to make my life miserable. He would assign me household chores like cleaning the laundry, but then he would also demand things like rubbing his shoulders. It wasn't the tasks that bothered me. It was the manipulation behind them. It was clear that my father-in-law wanted to make me feel small. He wanted to remind me of my place in his house. And it worked. I felt small. I felt like I was nothing more than a servant in his home. The stress started to get to me. I couldn't concentrate on my work anymore. I couldn't focus on anything other than the constant tension in the house. I thought, this can't be my life. This isn't what I signed up for. But I couldn't tell Sean. Every time I tried, he would brush it off. "You're overreacting," he'd say, or, "It's just my dad. Don't let him get to you." But it wasn't that simple. It wasn't just his father. It was everything. It was the constant belittling, the insults, the way I was treated like an outsider in my own home. One day, it got to the point where I had to speak up. I was sitting in my room, working, when my father-in-law knocked on the door. "Hurry up," he said, demanding that I make lunch. I was in the middle of an important meeting, but he didn't care. "You're at home all day. Why can't you cook lunch like a good wife?" He would always make these comments, as if it was my responsibility to cater to him at all hours of the day. "I'm busy," I tried to explain. "I have work to do. Can't you wait?" But he wouldn't listen. "No," he snapped. "This is what you're supposed to do. You're an immigrant. You don't understand how things work here. It's common sense to follow the family's rules." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. They stung more than I cared to admit. But it wasn't just about the lunch. It was about everything. It was about him controlling every aspect of my life and making me feel like I had no voice, no value. I reached my breaking point. I couldn't continue living under these conditions. I couldn't continue to let my father-in-law treat me like this, and I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. That night, I decided to talk to Sean. I had to tell him the truth. I had to tell him what was really going on. Part 3. A life-changing decision. When Sean came home that night, I could barely hold back my tears. I was exhausted, emotionally, mentally, and physically. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. I had to let him know what I had been going through. I poured my heart out to him. "Sean, I can't do this anymore. Your father treats me terribly. He insults me every day. He thinks I'm nothing. I'm constantly walking on eggshells and I can't keep doing it." Sean was horrified. He had no idea how bad things had gotten. He had no idea that his father's behavior was affecting me so deeply. He apologized over and over again. "I'm so sorry, Mickey. I didn't know. I swear I'll make it right. I'll talk to him. I'll fix this." The next day, Sean confronted his parents. He stood up to his father, something I never thought would happen. He told them how much pain his father's actions had caused me, how much I had been suffering. To my surprise, my father-in-law didn't take it well. He was defensive, refusing to admit that he had done anything wrong. But Sean didn't back down. "Let's move out," Sean suggested. "We don't need to live with them anymore. We can buy an apartment and live on our own, just the two of us." I couldn't believe it. I had never seen Sean stand up for me like that before. I was overwhelmed with relief and happiness. We didn't have to live like this anymore. We didn't have to let my father-in-law control us. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. We moved out of my in-laws' house soon after, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I was able to focus on my work, spend time with Sean, and just breathe. The constant stress and tension were gone. It was just the two of us, building our life together. After moving out, Sean and I quickly settled into our new life. Our apartment became our sanctuary, a place where we could escape the chaos of the world and just be ourselves. For the first time since we'd gotten married, I felt like I could breathe. No more walking on eggshells around my father-in-law. No more feeling isolated or unwanted. Our relationship flourished, and I saw a side of Sean I had never noticed before. He was more attentive, more present in our everyday life. We had our little routines, and I felt at peace. Yet, as time passed, I began to feel a tug of guilt. Sean's parents were still in his life, and I knew that despite everything that had happened, he still wanted to maintain a relationship with them. He had always been close to his mother, and although things were strained with his father, Sean still believed that family was important. I wanted to respect his wishes, but I couldn't shake the anxiety I felt at the thought of seeing my father-in-law again. A year had passed since the incident with the hidden camera in the watch. I had hoped that by now, my father-in-law might have learned something, that maybe he had changed. But deep down, I wasn't sure I was ready to face him. The memory of the control, the lies, the betrayal, it was still fresh in my mind. One day, after Sean had returned from a business trip, he told me that he had spoken to his parents about our daughter. "Mickey, I want them to meet her. I want my parents to see their granddaughter. I know it's been a while, but I think it might be good for all of us." I could see the hope in Sean's eyes. He wanted everything to be right between us and his family. He was asking me to put the past behind us, to allow his parents into our new life, and I knew that, as much as I dreaded it, I couldn't stop him. If this was something he truly wanted, then I had to try, for him, for us. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll go, but only for you, Sean." The day we went to my in-laws' house, I felt a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. As we walked through the front door, I took a deep breath and held Sean's hand tighter. It had been so long since I had stepped into this house, and now I was about to face the man who had made my life a living hell. But this time, I wasn't going to let him control me. I wasn't going to let the past dictate my future. When we entered, my father-in-law greeted us with a warm smile, almost unrecognizable from the man I remembered. "Well, look at you," he said, his voice much softer than before. "I'm so glad you're here. We've missed you, Mickey." I forced a smile, but inside, my heart was racing. This was it, the moment of truth. Could I trust him again? Could I really move on from what he had done to me? As we sat down to talk, my father-in-law was completely different. He seemed more humble, more open. He asked about our daughter, about how she was growing, about how everything was going. There was something almost warm in his demeanor, something that hadn't been there before. But as I listened, I couldn't help but feel a sense of discomfort. Could this be real? Was he actually changing, or was this just another act? The tension in the room was palpable. I kept glancing at Sean, who looked hopeful, as if he had finally gotten the reconciliation he had longed for. But the more I looked at my father-in-law, the more I felt that something was off. Then, just as we were about to leave, my father-in-law pulled out a gift-wrapped box and handed it to me. "Here," he said with a smile, "a gift for the birth of your daughter. It's something special." I couldn't believe it. A gift? From him? For me? I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. My father-in-law had never been generous with gifts, especially not with me. I didn't know how to react, so I simply took the box, my hands trembling slightly. As I opened it, I was stunned to see a wristwatch inside, an expensive-looking one. "It's a $1,500 watch," my father-in-law said, almost proudly. "I thought you'd like it." $1,500. I was speechless. I had never seen a watch that expensive in person, let alone received one as a gift. My mother-in-law, standing beside me, looked equally shocked, her eyes wide. I could see the tension in her face. She had never been one to speak up against her husband, but I could tell that she too was surprised by his sudden gesture. I didn't know what to say. Was this a real gift? Or was there a hidden agenda behind it? Despite the warmth in his tone, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. This watch, though seemingly generous, felt like a way for him to reclaim some control over me. It felt like a token of manipulation, a way for him to say, "Look what I've done for you. Now you owe me." But I didn't say any of this aloud. I smiled politely and thanked him, as much for Sean's sake as for my own. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe he had changed. Maybe I could learn to forgive him. But deep down I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure I could ever forgive the man who had violated my privacy, who had made me feel less than, who had tried to control every aspect of my life. That night, as we sat in our living room, I couldn't stop thinking about the watch. I glanced at it on the shelf, feeling a strange mix of emotions. It didn't seem like the type of gift you'd give someone you truly cared about. It felt like a token of ownership, a reminder that he was still watching me. Part 5. The Shocking Discovery. The next day, I couldn't resist the urge to take a closer look at the watch. Something about it still didn't sit right with me. I excused myself from Sean and went into the room where we had left the watch. My hands shook as I picked it up, examining it more closely. And that's when I saw it, a tiny black dot on the back of the watch. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. It looked almost like a camera lens. "No, it can't be," I whispered to myself. I had to be sure. I ran my fingers over the tiny dot, pressing it gently. To my horror, it didn't feel like just part of the design. It was a hidden camera. My stomach dropped. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. This was it. This was the confirmation I had been dreading. My father-in-law had been watching us. He had been spying on me, tracking my every move with the camera in the watch. That's how he knew everything. How he knew what I was doing, what I was eating, even the smallest details of my life. He had been tracking me the entire time. I didn't know what to do. My mind raced, and I felt my hands start to tremble. I could feel the anger building inside me, a rage I had never felt before. I had to confront him. I had to tell Sean what I had discovered. I ran to find Sean, holding the watch in my hand. "Sean," I said, my voice shaking, "you have to see this." When he saw the watch, his expression changed. His face went pale as he realized what I had uncovered. "Oh my God," he whispered. "How long has this been going on?" "Since the moment he gave it to us," I said, my voice breaking. "He's been watching us all this time. Everything we've done, everything we've said. He knew. He's been spying on us with that camera." I could feel the tension in the air as Sean stared at the watch in disbelief. His face was pale, his mouth slightly open as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. My hands were still trembling, clutching the watch tightly, as I waited for him to process what had just happened. "This can't be real," Sean muttered, his voice shaking. He was watching us all this time?" I nodded, unable to find the right words. My mind was still racing with the implications of what I had discovered. I had never imagined in a million years that my father-in-law, Sean's father, would betray our trust in such a horrible way. But there it was. The camera was hidden inside the watch, a device he had carefully placed to spy on us. My heart ached as I thought about all the times my father-in-law had been rude, distant, and controlling. Now it all made sense. He hadn't just been making hurtful comments or treating me with disdain. He had been observing every little detail of our lives, using that knowledge to criticize me and manipulate the situation to his advantage. "We have to do something," I said, my voice trembling. "I can't let this slide, Sean. We can't just pretend like it didn't happen." Sean nodded slowly, his jaw clenched in anger. "You're right," he said, determination in his eyes. "I'm going to confront him. This ends now." I felt a strange mix of relief and fear. Relief because Sean was finally taking action. Fear because I knew this confrontation wasn't going to be easy. My father-in-law wasn't the type to back down. He would try to deny everything, make excuses, and probably accuse me of overreacting. But this time, Sean and I weren't going to let him manipulate us any longer. The next day, Sean and I decided it was time to pay my in-laws a visit. I had to face my father-in-law, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. My stomach churned as we made our way to their house. I could feel the weight of what was coming, the tension in the air as we approached the front door. When we stepped inside, my father-in-law greeted us with a smile, but it was forced, like he was pretending to be happy. I could see right through him. He knew what was coming. He had to. There was no way he could deny the truth now. "Hello, Mickey," he said, his voice too cheery for my liking. "I'm glad you could make it." I didn't say anything in response. I simply walked past him and sat down, Sean by my side. The room was silent, the air thick with unspoken tension. Sean looked at his father, his expression hardening. "Dad, we need to talk." My father-in-law raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by Sean's tone. "What about?" Sean didn't waste any time. "We know what you've been doing. The watch you gave us, the one you said was a gift for our daughter. It's got a hidden camera in it. You've been spying on us, watching us, knowing everything we do. Why, Dad? Why did you think that was okay?" For a moment, my father-in-law didn't say anything. His eyes flickered to the watch and then back at Sean. He seemed to be trying to come up with an excuse, but there was nothing he could say to justify his actions. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "I thought I was helping. I thought if I watched you, I could understand what was really going on. You've changed, Sean. You're not the same boy I raised. I thought if I watched Mickey, I could figure out what was wrong with her." I could feel my blood boiling. "You're insane," I snapped. "This isn't about helping. This is about control. You never liked me, you never accepted me, and now you've been spying on me like some kind of criminal." Sean's face turned red with anger. "You've crossed a line, Dad. This isn't just about me and Mickey anymore. This is about our daughter. You're not going to control us. You're not going to make us live in fear of you." My father-in-law, realizing he could no longer deny it, seemed to shrink before our eyes. He mumbled something under his breath, but Sean wasn't having it. "You need to understand that this is over. You've hurt Mickey and me enough. I'm not going to stand by while you keep treating us like this. We're done." For a moment, there was silence in the room. Then my father-in-law spoke again, but this time his voice was laced with bitterness. "Fine, do what you want. I'm not going to apologize for protecting my son. You don't know what it's like to care for someone." Sean shook his head in disbelief. "It's not about protection, Dad. It's about respect. You've never respected Mickey, and now it's too late." I could see that my father-in-law was trying to hold on to his power, but it was slipping away. He was cornered, and he knew it. He tried to turn the tables, accusing me of overreacting, of being too sensitive. But the truth was out. It was impossible to ignore what he had done. Then my mother-in-law, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "I've had enough," she said, her voice surprisingly firm. "I've been putting up with his behavior for too long, and I'm done. I'm leaving him. This has gone on long enough." The room fell silent. My father-in-law looked stunned, his face pale as he realized what was happening. "What do you mean you're leaving me?" he asked, his voice weak. "I'm divorcing you," she said, her words cutting through the air. "I can't live like this anymore, not after everything you've done." I was shocked, but at the same time I felt a sense of relief. For years, my mother-in-law had been silent, enduring her husband's control and manipulation. But now, she was finally standing up for herself. She was free. Sean looked at me, and I could see the same relief in his eyes. We had made it through the worst of it. We had faced the truth, confronted the man who had tormented us, and now we were free to move on with our lives. Part 7. A New Beginning and Moving Forward. The aftermath of everything that had happened was overwhelming. My father-in-law was left alone, having lost his wife, his home, and his son. As for my mother-in-law, she moved out and began living on her own, finally free from the toxic environment that had kept her trapped for so long. Sean and I, on the other hand, felt lighter than we had in years. We returned to our apartment, our sanctuary, and began rebuilding our lives. Sean's relationship with his mother grew stronger, and while he was still hurt by his father's actions, he found peace in knowing that we had each other. He even started spending less time on business trips, opting to work from home more so he could be with me and our daughter. Our bond as a family had never been stronger. Looking back, I realized that everything we went through, the manipulation, the pain, the heartbreak, wasn't just a test of our strength, but also a turning point. We had learned to stand up for ourselves, to confront the toxic people in our lives, and to protect the happiness we had built together. I had learned that it was okay to fight for my peace, and that true happiness comes from within. We didn't just survive this ordeal, we thrived. Our daughter grew up surrounded by love and positivity, and as for Sean and me, we knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, stronger than ever. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Life was good, and I was finally in control of my own happiness.